I don't know. I'm signing in just for fun. I don't think so. All right. Good evening, everyone. This is the Planning and Zoning Commission work session on case 2013-068, Eklutna Monofil Master Plan, and case 2013-069, Eklutna Monofil Conditional Use. This is August 19th, 2013 at 6:30 p.m. There have been a series of questions that have gone back and forth between staff, and we do have some additional representatives here. Does everyone have, in the audience, Erica, have this handout as well in terms of what the questions are? Or that have been?
Madam Chair, I understand a number of them were put out in the lobby.
All right, very good. I think what we will do first and foremost is to hear from the representatives that are here. So, Erica, could you introduce them, please? And several of the questions that we have been directed towards those departments, and we're pleased to have you here.
Madam Chair, I'm going to have Margaret O'Brien introduce our guests.
All right, thank you.
Madam Chair, to my left is Mr. Mark Madden. He's from Solid Waste Services. To my immediate right is Ms. Lori Aldrich, and she is from the Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation. She's the supervisor of the section that oversees the landfill operations. Further to my right is Mr. Nathaniel Emery, who also works in ADEC.
All right.
And,
yes.
And Ms. Christy Bischoffberger from Watershed Management Services is seated in the lower tier to my left. And Tom Davis is also seated here for subsequent questions on the master plan for Eagle River.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's begin with comments from Solid Services then.
We can respond to some of those questions. Some of the answers in the handout are not exactly correct, so we'd like to give our own responses to make sure those are correct.
All right. Do you want to begin simply with the first question then? Are you prepared for some sort of presentation or?
This is Nathaniel Emery. I'm the Environmental Program Specialist with DEC Solid Waste, and I would be the acting project manager for this site.
Okay.
I have not prepared any sort of presentation, simply responses to the questions that we've received thus far.
Okay.
Many of them aren't appropriate for me to answer under our jurisdiction, but however you'd like to proceed, we can go line by line. And if I have any sort of comment, I can address it. If not, we can simply pass if that suits the commission.
All right. Well, let's begin then. Eklutna Monofil Master Plan and Conditional Use. What is the overall plan and documented need long-term of waste disposal in Anchorage? Is this the first of many private monofil sites we will need in coming years? What is the need analysis for the MOA?
I don't feel that this is a question for our program. Do you want to cover everything with me specifically, or do you want to direct the question towards someone that may be appropriate for that question?
Well, I think given the past few minutes, here's what we're going to do. We're going to try and answer these questions, and whoever would like to pipe in and answer these questions, I think this is the appropriate procedure. All right.
All right. My name is Mark Madden. Again, I'm with the Solid Waste Services Department with the municipality. Have we done a need analysis for similar type landfills in the municipality? I would say no, we have not. The last need analysis we did was in the 1980s, which brought us to the Anchorage Regional Landfill. And intent was to centralize the various waste disposal sites around the municipality into one area. But that's the last study that I'm aware of.
May I follow up, Madam?
Yes, please.
Do you expect that there's going to be more of these in front of us in the future, the private disposal sites?
I'm not. I don't know. I couldn't say for sure. This is the first one in 25 years. So.
Okay, let me ask the question another way then. Is it your opinion that there's a need in the municipality for a private use?
I don't know that I'm going to express an opinion either way on that. I don't. Like I say, my position is that I run the regional landfill, and that's what I do.
Thank you.
Commissioner Spring.
Yes, sorry. This question might be repeated elsewhere, but I think it's related to the long-term disposal in Anchorage. The landfill, currently, the regional landfill off Highland Road what is the length of life of that landfill? And also, we heard from testimony that there's additional land that could be negotiated with, I guess, the United States government, the Army base in that area, that could be used to expand the landfill. And I don't know if this is, well, the second question I'll wait for that one, if you can answer that.
Let me just start with your first question. The last calculation that we've done on the remaining life of the Anchorage Regional Landfill is at our current solid waste practices in the municipality. That landfill will last us to almost 2050. So it has about 37 years left. As for the future land, we have had discussions over the years with Fort Richardson. However, at this time, there is no firm agreements in place to move into that additional lands at this time.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Jim, Commissioner Ferguson, do you have some questions? I think maybe this might be the best way to.
Okay, well, I'll go down to question 3 because I'm going to say we've sort of answered 1 and 2. The monofill is taking a specific type of material from our understanding. Is there any limit on the current landfill for taking similar material?
No, there's not.
What is the cost at the current landfill to tip this material?
All material that comes to the gate is $58 per ton.
If I can continue, if it would
Yes.
help you, Madam Chair.
Yes, it would. Thank you.
And this may be back to DEC. Does DEC see a difference in the regulatory environment between the landfill and the monofill?
A monofill is simply a specific name, a subset of all landfills. So in this case, it's an inert waste material stream that's coming in. And so there is no real differentiation between a landfill and a monofill. However, because of the type of waste stream, it is regulated differently under our Alaska Administrative Code 18 AAC 60, the solid waste regulations. The inert waste material is certainly managed. Applications with operations, et cetera, are different between a municipal solid waste facility like the regional landfill and this proposed monofill. And just for clarification, we have not received an application yet for this site, and so I'm purely speaking.
Hypothetically?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
could I go back to the second question? I just want to clarify, make sure I understand the answers to that. We heard from testimony that inert materials, which the proposed monofill and Chugiak would receive, would represent about 1 to 2% of the total solid waste stream in the city, and that it wouldn't really extend the life much of the landfill. Do you keep statistics on the amount of C&D materials at the regional fill, and is it possible to verify that figure?
The only statistics that we keep in great detail are the amount of asbestos-containing material that comes to us, because we have to keep it in a separate cell, and we also have to track and report it. And that actually makes up about 7% of the waste stream per year. And if you were to extrapolate out, just looking at the waste as it comes through, probably 15 to 20% would be building material of some sort.
And if I follow up on that, I believe the petitioner's representative stated that there was a previous report by the landfill, by Solid Waste Services, that monofills would help extend the life and would be a welcome addition to the to help out the regional waste facility extend its life. I'm kind of paraphrasing those words, but I think that was the gist of it.
I'm not familiar with the report, but I obviously anything that you divert from the landfill extends its life.
And this would be, in this term, it could be up to 20% then.
No, because I don't believe that you would ever divert all of it. I mean, you have the homeowners that bring us their deck, for example, as opposed to the guys that are taking down whole houses and buildings. They probably would have more of a use of going to central recycling facility, the central recycling facility, than just coming straight to the landfill.
I just gave you some of my demolition materials last week, actually.
Yeah.
So do you have a conflict of interest?
Well, let's put it to a vote, I guess, yeah.
All right, thank you. All right. All right. Do some states require monofills to be lined where Alaska does not? Do we have an...
The short answer is yes. Some states do require a liner. Alaska does not.
Madam Chair, can I?
Yes.
Are all your cells lined at the existing regional landfill?
Yes, everything that we construct is on a liner.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Ferguson, do you want to continue? Do you have...
Okay.
I know you have a list.
Okay. These questions were not drafted by myself. The opinions in some of the questions are not my opinion. I would like to clarify that. Could you simply explain what you would see recognizing you've not seen a permit or an application, and I understand that that would give you some information you would find helpful in answering this question. What level of regulatory inspection or reporting would you require from this monofill as you understand it?
With our active authorizations of this type, we attempt to inspect them annually, a physical on-site inspection. Part of the monitoring plans include a monthly visual checklist, and so when we do visit, we do ask to see all evidence of those monthly inspections, of which the requirements for that checklist are found in regulation. We will visit more often as necessary, but yeah, our typical inspection frequency is once annually.
What paperwork reporting is also required?
Generally, their monthly visual monitoring inspections is something that we review at the time of an inspection. Typically, they don't have any paperwork that needs to be submitted to us annually. other than if they have a financial assurance that needs to be updated annually.
So there's no report indicating that for the month of June, we took in 297 tons, and there's nothing of that nature?
No, they would keep those records at the landfill, and we would review those upon our inspection.
What nature reports would you expect them to keep at the landfill?
Whenever we visit, we typically ask for a manifest to see what sort of loads are coming in. We ask about random load inspections, which are documented in an operations plan that they would present and we would approve of.
How frequently would you expect a random load inspection? Is that monthly, weekly, daily, what?
We don't have a specific requirement. That would be a part of the permitting process.
When we heard testimony on this last week, one of the major concerns that we had from the public was, if you open up a landfill, how do we know that what the landfill's been approved for is actually what's going in the landfill or monofill? How does the public know that from DEC, or is it something that you regulate?
We absolutely regulate it. They'll have very specific items that they can take and other items that are prohibited. That's part of the random load inspections, that they'll have to show that they've done random load inspections over whatever period that is required by the permit, and show that they haven't got any prohibited items in those loads.
And what's the penalty if they do not do it correctly?
Then they would at least get a notice of violation, and we could take it further than that depending on the level of the violation.
Could part of that be a fine or a shutdown of the monofill or the landfill?
We don't have any capacity in our regulations to levy fines, but it could, in the most extreme cases, include pulling their permit.
Okay. I guess one of the other questions I have that we've kind of danced around is, can you tell me what you have to qualify for a permit to do a landfill?
Well, we have a fairly extensive permit application that it requires designs, it requires an operations plan that meets the requirements of our permit application. It requires estimates on the amount of waste you're going to take in. It requires hydrology characteristics of the area.
Included in the design would be stability analysis of any slopes. The operations plan itself is quite extensive with the waste placement plan, how it would be covered, frequency of cover, etc. There's fire requirements for firefighting, should one occur. It's a 15-page application, and then within that are many components that actually would require an attachment. So these do become pretty healthy documents by the end of it.
And how many of these do you process in a year's time through your office?
For inert waste monofill specifically?
Well, just for waste, for a landfill. Sure. Just trying to get an idea how long it takes and those kind of things.
Permits processed through our office would typically run, and that it would include permit renewals, probably anywhere from 6 to 10 a year.
Madam Chair, can I follow up on the requirements for the application? I was reading the permit applications on the website, and I noticed there was a requirement for odor control plan and a litter control plan, and for a monofill. And I was wondering what that might entail, what you would look for in that type of operating plan requirement?
Litter is a component of the monthly visual inspection form, so they would be, self-regulating within that time of, making sure they check if they find that there's an item that's out of compliance in that list, then they would address it, and then we, during our annual inspection would obviously address and support whatever they're doing to correct those issues if they exist. As far as odor, if we get a complaint from the public, we'll respond. Typically on site. In my 3 years in the position, we haven't been on site in a random facility inspection where we've had an odor issue.
Just to follow up, 2 more questions. Also, I noticed that there's requirement for a final elevation for the completion of the project. And I believe there's also a bonding requirement of some kind or another, or rather some type of proof of financial responsibility for completion of that cover elevation, I believe. Is that true? And what does that entail exactly?
The financial assurance section of our permit accounts for an instance where an applicant may walk away from a project, and the state of Alaska is responsible for closing and monitoring that site. And so the bond, there's a few different mechanisms that are used, but we've seen quite a few bonds recently, and those cover both the closure. So to take it from, say worst case scenario, some just open cell to actually close it appropriately according to the plan, cover it as appropriately, vegetate it, and then also to cover any post-closure monitoring, which lasts a minimum of 5 years. And so it would also factor in any sort of consulting costs because the state of Alaska does not provide that service.
So what does it mean by when it says financial responsibility? Are you looking for a bond? Is that cost estimate? You make a cost estimate and then you require a bond to back it up?
There are several different mechanisms they can use. They can use a bond, a trust fund. Some companies do self-insurance based on for instance, BP or ConocoPhillips uses self-insurance based on the value of the company versus the closure of their sites. We allow letters of credit for that amount. So there's a number of mechanisms that they can use, but basically it needs to make the funds available to the state of Alaska in the case that we need to come in and close that monofill.
If I could follow up on this specific site, could you give us an expected range of what you think that financial guarantee would be in?
We are not comfortable proposing any amounts right now. We do have a financial calculator that we've adjusted from a state of Virginia document. And so whenever the applicant will typically propose an amount, and we'll check that with our calculator to make sure that we're in the same ballpark. And then any negotiation between the applicant and ourselves will occur at that time.
Yes, please.
Asking questions about the application process. I know there's also hydrology requirements, study requirements, superficial and whatever. What do you look for in that, and what would be a result that might cause such an application to be denied, or more broadly, I guess?
Basically, we're looking for the levels of the groundwater. They're required to have 10 feet of groundwater separation. We're looking for the general hydrology of the site, what the groundwater flow is, where is the up-gradient side, the down-gradient side. In the case of this, they'd have to get pretty specific. I know they want to do some fill from the original discussions we've had, so that would have to be included in there. But they would have to do a fairly extensive site hydrology study to show what the general hydrology of the site is.
So then, in your experience, though, have you ever denied a permit, or is there always a case of if there's a problem you find ways to mitigate it through conditions of approval or something?
That would generally be up to the applicant, is we would bring those to them, and they would have to show us ways to mitigate it, that they would be mitigating it.
In this case, we heard testimony that there's Mink Creek, which flows on this parcel, through parts of this parcel, not necessarily through the monofill site, might have salmon in the stream at some time or another. Would that be something you'd look at to require that special requirements?
Absolutely.
Is it a special permit?
There may be other permits involved for that. Certainly with Fish and Game would want to be involved in that, and we would get them involved in a situation such as that. But they would have to show us how they would mitigate that and cause no damage to the stream.
If I can,
Yes, please.
I would, looking through the questions, it would appear to me that the DEC questions would maybe start again on question 13. And I'm going to paraphrase these in the interest of trying to get, answers that we would understand. We've had discussion and testimony regarding a monofill site at the Birchwood Airport. Was that a site that was permitted under DEC regulations, or do you have any knowledge on that?
Yes, that site's been permitted since, I believe, 1980 by DEC.
Has that site now been closed?
It has not been closed under our records. My understanding is that they're working on a plan to actually expand it, but we have not received any information on that.
Under your permitting process, do they, I'm trying to understand this, that it's there and it may or may not be working. Do they have to keep you informed as to whether they're stopping to take material or what their future plan is, or how do you find that out?
They would have to let us know if they've stopped taking material for greater than 90 days. They would have to do an interim closure. As far as any expansions, they would have to provide us with designs.
Okay. And you've not had any notice of a 90-day closure or anything else, so as far as you're aware that they're still open and taking material?
Yes.
I don't know if that answers the question, and it may lead to more questions, but I'll go to 14. Currently, the EPA does not require any special handling of construction waste with lead paint on it. I will take that as at that face value. Do you see any change in DEC regulations regarding lead paint on materials in the foreseeable future?
Actually, EPA does have regulations. Anything over a fourplex needs to be tested, and if it tests higher than their level, then it typically what would happen is they would sandblast the paint off, and then they would dispose of the paint as a hazardous waste and demolish the rest of the building. If it's below their levels, then it can be demolished and disposed as inert waste.
And do you have any knowledge of that's going to change, or do you expect that to remain the same?
I do not, and if EPA were to change those rules, Alaska would follow suit.
Okay. Because if it is above a fourplex and has been sandblasted off, it is then determined to be a hazardous material. That material that was sandblasted off could not go to this monofill. Is that correct?
Correct.
So it would go to the solid waste services plant.
No, it would go to a hazardous waste landfill in the lower 48.
Wow. Does your solid waste permit, does your solid waste program include plastic materials?
In reference to question 15 about our exempt materials and then the presence of plastic in this waste stream, that would certainly require a permit. almost all the materials that would be coming here would be permit driven.
You lost me.
There are some materials that are exempt from our regulations, such as the concrete slash where tree stumps and things like that are exempt from our regulation and can essentially go anywhere as fill that's not in water. Anything beyond the exempt materials is considered a regulated waste. So any plastics, any dimensional wood, virtually anything from a construction demolition site would be considered a regulated waste.
So most of the material that they're bringing here is a regulated waste. That's why they need to submit an application to you for approval. Is
Correct.
that correct? Thank you.
No.
Boy, that's good. The Loretta French Park, which is near this site, can you tell me the history of that dump/park? Is DEC aware of it?
Yes, the DECs. I can give you the history.
DEC is aware of that. Well, that was the Peters Creek landfill, and it's an unlined landfill. I think Mr. Madden can tell you what years it was actually operated, but that is now a closed landfill, and they are still doing groundwater monitoring at that site.
The site that we operated as a solid waste facility actually underlays just the equestrian portion of Loretta French Park. Solid Waste Services operated the site from 1982 to 1987. I went and did a little bit of poking around this afternoon, and I went back as far as the Greater Anchorage Borough's solid waste management planning document from 1977, and it doesn't have any mention of that site, so I don't know if there was any activity before 1982 on that site.
Madam Chair, can I go back and previous question?
Yes, and then,
Ferguson,
and then Ms. Dean. Mhm.
Waste that are permitted and regulated. We've heard some testimony regarding gypsum board, drywall, and I've did some research into some other states, and there seems to be some concern among other agencies regarding gypsum board, and some have made moves to, it look like, to prohibit gypsum board, primarily due to odor-related concerns, hydrogen sulfide, I think. Do you have any concerns of that, or is there any proposal in the future to eliminate gypsum board in particular from monofill sites?
What the concern is the generation of hydrogen sulfide gas, and that not only causes the odor, that kind of egg-smelling odor, but also can be poisonous. It is only one type of gypsum board that does that, and we're currently investigating what changes to our regulations might need to be made based on the H2S or the hydrogen sulfide gas.
To follow up on that, so if there was a regulation in the future that prohibited a certain type of gypsum board, would that then wouldn't be grandfathered in? It would be a new requirement of the permit after the new regulation was adopted?
Yes.
Following up on the drywall, the drywall that I'm aware of nationwide that has been represented as producing that gas was all produced in China. Is that correct? Is that your understanding?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay. Thank you.
And just follow up on I'm still a little confused about the permitted materials. So when you list the permitted materials in the application, and do you come up with some certain types of restrictions or conditions on those? Is that what the idea is?
They would have a list. They would be allowed to take inert construction demolition debris, and they would have, moreover, they'd have a very extensive list of things they could not take, such as any putrescible waste. They could not take any oily waste. They could not take any hazardous waste of any kind. But there's a fairly extensive list of waste they cannot take.
Okay.
And
So what about rebar? Would that be,
rebar would be allowed.
it would be allowed?
That would be a typical construction demolition.
And that
material.
doesn't have any leachate results or any, is that not hazardous or?
No, that is not hazardous.
Ms. Dean?
I had a few questions related to lead paint. Does lead paint leach into the soil? Will it leach into the groundwater?
I think at the levels of lead paint they would be allowed to have in the landfill, it wouldn't be a concern.
The reason I ask is I had to sit in January of 2010 through a 2-day class to become certified by the EPA as a lead renovator, as a general contractor. The EPA has changed their regulations dramatically. Since any homes that are remodeled that were built prior to 1978, we have to test everything to see if it has lead paint.
Right.
But here's the trick. We're not supposed to sandblast it, unlike what you said. We are not supposed to scrape it. We're not supposed to burn it. But we can double bag it and put it in a landfill.
If it's over 5%, which is the hazardous waste level, it cannot be put in a landfill in the state of Alaska.
That is a separate regulation. I'm just going by what the EPA taught me in class. And we were told that we could do that. And I know there has been talk of changing that so that that waste stream has to go into a separate landfill type situation that deals with so-called hazardous waste. Have you heard anything from the EPA regarding that?
It currently, if it is more than 5% lead, based on composite samples, where you get a sample of both the lead and the material, or the paint and the material that it's attached to. If it's more than 5% lead, it's considered a hazardous waste and has to go to a hazardous waste landfill in the lower 48.
I've never seen anything that high.
Right. It's very rare. It's very rare to find anything that high. That would typically be if the paint was removed, and the paint itself may test that high. But typically you won't find those levels.
There were some comments made last Monday that they were concerned that they weren't going to put any metals in the monofill so that they would not get any heavy metals in the groundwater. Is lead considered a heavy metal?
Yes, lead is a heavy metal. One of the issues with leaching of heavy metals is they leach typically in a very acidic environment. And the leachate from a inert waste monofill, if you get any significant leachate at all, does not tend to be as acidic as, for instance, from a municipal landfill, where the leachate tends to be very acidic. So there's less concern with the leaching of metals at an inert waste monofill than for a municipal waste monofill.
Regarding that runoff that comes out of a landfill or a monofill, at the Highland dump, there is a catch system, is there not, for the water, and that it is treated before it is released from the dump?
There is for the leachate, and that's because they have a lined system, so they can collect the leachate.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there other questions? Commissioner Ferguson?
I don't believe there are other questions for DEC and SWC. I sincerely appreciate you people taking the time this evening to help inform us. It's been very, very helpful, and we appreciate you stepping out of your normal realm to try to answer our questions, because we are not experts in this, and we depend on people like yourselves. And besides, we like the company on a Monday night. We like a larger crowd on that one. I don't have any further questions. Maybe the other commissioners do, but I, for one, would like to thank you very much for attending and answering our questions. I appreciate it, and I'm certain the other commissioners do also.
Thank you, and we're happy to be here, and should you have any other additional questions, you're welcome to email them to us, and we can answer them that way.
Thank you very much.
I can leave cards with Miss O'Brien as well.
All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming out on a Monday night for us.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
We still open for questions?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I'd just like, since the municipal staff, water quality staff is here, Ms. Bischoff, there was I think, a comment that your office provided regarding possibly undocumented branch of Mink Creek in the area, and I think you mentioned it was probably within the area of the monofill, perhaps, and that if it was, then it would have to get special permits for channelizing it or filling it, I believe. Is there any more information? You think it's necessary to do more extensive on-site investigation to find out if and document the actual area of Mink Creek?
Yes.
Through the chair. The jurisdictional determination of June 16, 2013 indicates that there is a couple places that the Corps has documented streams where the municipality did not. Those streams need to be considered by the applicants in terms of setbacks and managing. It wasn't clear in the determination whether or not there was continuity. So that is something you should confirm and then deal with from a municipal setback issue. What we generally do when we receive a determination like this from the Corps is we go ahead and put into our mapping system the streams that they indicated to us exist, because the applicant must then abide by that.
Follow up on that. Is that stream that the Corps documented within the area of the monofill?
I believe it is in the revised area of the monofill. Yes.
And if that was the case, then it would have to be setback requirements, or it could potentially disrupt the actual fill area itself if it was centrally located within the area, I'm assuming. It would disrupt the operations or the plans for the potentially for the landfill development.
That's possible.
Madam Chair, I got one more question.
Yes.
See if I may. Question 20, is DEC aware of any complaints against the applicant or their operator at this time?
There's been a complaint from a proposed Palmer facility against the applicant.
Is that current and has it been resolved, or what's the status?
Our department deferred to local authority on that. Their code compliance and enforcement group had a greater case against the applicant than we did. And so we've handed it over to the Matanuska-Susitna Borough.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions from commissioners at this time? So, Ms. McConnell, I have a question to ask you, and perhaps it's been answered in the past or in documents, and I just can't recall it. But has the Planning and Zoning Commission, in recent history, ever been asked to provide a conditional use for a landfill or a monofill, or is this somewhat precedent-setting?
According to Mr. Madden, there was a conditional use for the municipal landfill in, he says, 1986.
All right.
In my time at the municipality, I don't recall any conditional uses for any other landfills.
Is it my understanding, would it be accurate to assume that even with the new Title 21, this conditional use would go to the Planning and Zoning Commission?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. And the master plan would also go to the Planning and Zoning Commission, or would that go somewhere else?
A PC master plan would still come to the commission for a recommendation and then to the assembly for approval.
All right. Thank you very much. I needed that I needed that clarification. So basically, what we're doing here is we haven't basically had in 30-some-odd years such a request before the Planning and Zoning Commission.
I would caveat that to say, my experience at the municipality has been 10 years, and I
Okay.
can't recall one in my 10 years. Mr. Madden knows of one in 86. So I can't say there haven't been any in 30 years.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Commissioner Spring.
One quick question on DEC. Can you process an application for a monofill permit without having a land use approval from the local jurisdiction or contingent upon that?
We can process the application. We could even issue a permit, but they would not be able to use the permit. They are required, one of the conditions of the permit is that they have to abide by all local regulations.
All right. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to a second step here for this work session. If there are no other questions from the commissioners. All right. So what we're going to do, because there are lots of people here tonight, and some of you are going to want to give some comments, and we are going to give everyone an opportunity, including the petitioner, to make some comments. I will tell you that the Commission's goal is to be able to adjourn this work session at 8:30 p.m., and so we would appreciate brevity and keeping your comments specific to the issues regarding case 2013-068 and 2013-069. We do not have a secretary here tonight, so you are going to be sort of hand clocked, so to speak, and we appreciate your brevity. I know that Mr. Potter has some comments that he would like to make, and so we are going to follow the protocol of a regular commission meeting and let the petitioner's representative make some comments.
Madam Chair, I don't want to go on the clock. Right now, I'd like to ask for some clarification that as long as the agency representatives are here, there were a couple of items that I think needed to be clarified or confirmed. That would be helpful to everybody in the audience. One being whether or not DEC believes that Eklutna or CRS is involved at all in the Birchwood landfill that the community has brought up so many issues about, because we believe that there's some concern or belief that they are, and that's not the case. Secondly, from a jurisdictional determination standpoint, we do have our wetlands biologist here who did go out and do the field work, and if there's questions specific about that and the streams, I believe he may be better apt to respond to those. So those were really my issues as long as they were here. And lastly, there is a 2008 report done for the city on how to manage recycling and get things out of the waste stream and better do those things. It may not have been done specifically for solid waste services, but it was a city report done to pursue that, and there are specific recommendations and comments in that report. So if nothing else, I want to make sure that Mr. Madden is aware that that report is out there, which I believe he is aware of. So, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Do any of the commissioners have comments, questions?
I have a question for Mr.
All right.
Potter. Mr. Potter,
Mr. Potter.
wake up, sir.
I'm not on the clock.
Truck traffic is a concern for everybody on this project. Truck traffic is forecast to be 12 trucks a day. We've heard testimony that if it gets shut down, to make up the tonnage, you may have to increase trucks on the next day, and that I believe in your application you state if you inform the community council you would like to be able to increase the truck traffic. Can you speak to that, please?
Certainly. First, I think it's important for any of those who have not gone out to the site to drive up the Glen Highway and drive to the North Birchwood exit where it says truck route. That is a designated truck route off of the main highway to the Old Glen Highway. The Old Glen Highway is a truck route, and we are proposing to route our traffic up the Glen, North Birchwood exit, around so all of the turns are right coming into the site, and then going back out to the South Birchwood exit. So it's, again, a right-hand turn, not crossing traffic. As far as the level of traffic goes, there are a significant number of trips that go in and out of the facility that Subursa has, in excess of that 12 trucks a day on numerous occasions. Likewise, there are no other limits anywhere close to what we've been limited to for any of the existing industrial operations that are located on the Glen Highway. And in fact, the Community Council at one of our meetings approved not just an expansion of the Moosehorn rock quarry, but additional traffic. And I think they were looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 170 approved trips per day, which is just down the street. So when we look at it in context, we are a blip, and we are trucks all owned and operated by a single operation, not a contractor here, a contractor there, or renegade truck services that are on an independent ownership basis. So there's absolute control over those parties. So.
If I can expand upon that answer, because I believe that's been brought up by quite a few people, and specifically Mr. Carlson, the president of the Chugach Community Council, made the comment in the last testimony that their intent was to basically decrease the amount of truck traffic and those types of things on, in that area, in the Chugach area. Yet in that very same meeting where they met and voted against the monofill, they approved Moosehorn to more than double the size of their quarry, which requires blasting and everything, over 100 trucks a day. CUPs right now for the 4 facilities within a mile of this facility, 617 trucks a day are allowed under the current CUPs. We're talking 6 to 12 trucks a day. Our average for the last 3 years, and this is our average, is less than 4 trucks a day. We have professional drivers. They all have their CDLs. We're not talking about a small, unskilled drivers along here. Basically, when you start talking our numbers, then you shouldn't even allow another family along there, because if you have a family with anybody, with even a teenager, you're going to have the same number of trips a day. But we're, relatively speaking, and I personally was out at the Curbo Lane and did a traffic count out there. One morning when I was out there, there were 20 trucks in 1 hour that went in and out of Curbo Lane at the maintenance facility.
You've answered my question. Thank you. We do. I take the chairman's comments seriously because we would like to get out of here.
Yes.
But thank you for expanding that.
All right. Are there other people here who would like to give testimony? Not testimony, actually, who would like to have a comment. This is a work session. If you feel that you have something in addition to add that we have not already heard in last Monday's meeting or this meeting, you are welcome to come forward.
Does that include me? I have plenty.
I'm sure you do have plenty to say.
And I don't mean that facetiously, ma'am. But there's been a lot of questions. There were a lot of questions issued. We spent the time trying to respond to these questions, and I actually thought from the last conversation at the meeting This work section was going to be the board asking questions and getting responses to their specific questions.
Which we
And
have
I'm
been doing this,
confused
which
about-
we have been doing this evening. What I would like to suggest is that you've had your representative and you've had quite a bit of time at the podium. There are other people here who might like to add some comments, and so I would ask you to willingly sort of refrain while we hear from others.
Will I have an opportunity to speak after that?
If the commission so chooses and feels that they have additional questions.
Because there's a very key point that has not been brought up, so.
Madam Chair, I think the concern is that the questions were forwarded to us by staff with the interest of getting that information to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And, you know, the agencies were here, you asked specific questions of them. I believe that we were asked by staff, and we put in a week's worth of very hard work trying to respond to as many as we could to have that information so we could answer those questions. And it would be, I think, appropriate to allow us to provide our answers to you on those questions that might be enlightening. Thank you.
What is the wish of the commission at this time? Commissioner Spring.
I think I'd be interested in hearing some comments from the petitioner with the exclusion, perhaps, that the ones we directed to DEC specifically and the solid waste services specifically regarding their permitting process and landfill requirements and the capacity of the landfill, I think we've got sufficient answers on those questions. If you could avoid being reiterating what they said, I mean, those are the people we were asked questions to, and,
All right.
and please don't.
Ms. Dean, what would you like?
I'd like to hear from the public.
Okay.
I also, as for Eklutna being able to respond to the questions, I think that needs to be routed through staff and not directly to us by the petitioner, and that way we're all on the same page.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Parks, what is your desire?
Madam Chair, I would like to hear what the petitioners have to say, but as long as it's kept brief. We've spent many hours listening to this particular issue, so I think that what we're trying to do is get the big picture, and I want to talk a little bit about the master plan before it gets too late in the evening.
All right, Commissioner Ferguson.
As long as it can be kept on topic and not just a rehash of what we've heard before. I mean, we're trying to receive the information and understand it, and I don't want just additional, I would like new information if you have new information on it, kept concise.
All right, so at this particular point in time, we are going to hear from the public, and then we will allow the petitioner to have some time as well. Is there people here from the public who would like to provide some information? All right.
Yes, good evening. My name is Scott Gerard. I wasn't planning to be up here, but there's a question a couple of us have had regarding the 12 trucks per day. At one time we were told that's 12 trucks a day over a year. But what happens when you can't run the dump in the wintertime? Does that shift your average for when the dump can be operated to 15 trucks a day, 24 trucks a day? So if we had some clarification on how the 12 trucks a day has been calculated, that would be good.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else here who would like to add a question or information?
Hi, my name's Ben Boer, and I just grabbed the solid waste services guy as he walked out the door. He said best case scenario, it'll having this monofill will add 1.5 to 2 years to our municipal waste landfill. I don't believe it's worth that small amount to create another dump in our area. The other thing that I would like to know, and was not addressed or asked of the DEC or the regulatory authority on the Birchwood monofill, is the smell complaints. I know that they got some. I experienced the smells myself, and if maybe somebody here was kind enough to ask the DEC if they received any complaints and maybe what the results of those were. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Is there someone else who has questions or information that would be of a benefit to the commission?
Hi, my name is John Daly. I live on Amundsen Road. A couple things. Reference to smell we talked about. I had a couple of discussions with Lori over here, and we've done quite a bit of field work looking. It looks almost, I would say 99% that the odor that was coming out of the birchwood at that time is hydrogen sulfide. We're going to be doing some tests with them to confirm or deny that. There's a lot of problems with the hydrogen sulfide. The levels that it comes to, the lowest level, the federal agency, and I've got ATSDR, I believe it is, that looks and monitors that. The lowest level with them and Corps of Engineers is a sulfur smell. The next moderate level comes up to a sweet chemical type smell, which is the smell that we were getting for probably 2 years at the Birchwood site. It's our belief that that is hydrogen sulfide. It's a very dangerous gas. There has been several deaths at monofill sites in the lower 48 in extreme circumstances, of course, but there is long-term health effects from that. And that location there's been literally thousands of people that have been exposed to it. You have the people that use the range that go through, do all the events, the kids shoot events, all the other stuff all the time in the shooting. And then you also have the people who work at the range, and then the people who work at the landfill. And you've got a number of people that work at Birchwood Airport and are there all the time. It's a very significant problem that relates to the one that they're proposing up on Kerbo. Now you take that from an area where there's nobody around, a very low area down by Birchwood. Now you've got senior centers, you've got houses, you've got a child care center, you've got a whole ton of stuff that's there. And it could be a real problem. There's number two. EPA made the cities do a drinking water protection act and a map, and to identify specific areas around the municipality, around the cities that are very in danger as far as that need to be protected and kept as far as the drinking water. This is the DEC's map on this and the areas. Specifically at the exact site where they're wanting to put the monofill site is one of the specific areas where the drinking water protection area is located. I can provide you a copy if you want. Here. And I don't know if you guys have gotten one before. As far as this.
If you would give a copy to staff, and then they can make they can provide it to us. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Yes. Do you have anything that's new information that you'd like to share for the commission?
New information. I didn't know you guys already had it.
No, I'm saying, do you have any other additional information?
I don't mean to be obtuse, but this came on unexpected. We were understanding we weren't be able to. Is it okay if I look through what I got and come back if we need to be? Come back down here after somebody else speaks. We had no idea that we were going to be able to give you any information today, so nothing prepared.
You need to give us specific new information that the commission hasn't heard either tonight or in testimony from last Monday night.
Okay.
All right.
I'll go
Thank
look and see and get more. Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone else? Please limit your testimony to new information.
Hi, my name is Deb Thorell. I've been up to every meeting listening to this, and you guys have a tough decision. I understand that. I was so against this at first, and now that I'm actually listening to what they're not listening to the new items that these people are talking about. Loretta French Park was a dump. My husband told me that people dumped everything there, and it's buried, and it just doesn't seem like even the DC, well, it's over with. It's forgotten about. They buried it. It's a beautiful park. Well, these people are going to be monitored with everything they're putting in the ground. And I do understand it could get into the water, leach water, but what's going to come out of that dump that's been buried already? It's like nobody cares about that. And I do understand that some of the stuff they might put in there is not good, but you need to look at the dump that's there. I had spoke with them, and they're monitoring water from the dump that goes before where they're putting it in. So I think the whole thing needs to be looked at as the dump that was there. That's a beautiful park now. What are they going to create? What's going to be created after they get done? It's going to be a beautiful park, but it needs to be monitored, and you guys have a tough decision.
Is there anyone else who has, you represent the petitioner?
I've got new information.
We will give you an opportunity to do that. All right. I'm not interested in an opinion. I'm interested in new, germane information that we previously have not heard.
Okay.
So if you have something like that to share, you are welcome to come forward.
I have some papers here I'd like to present to the board. It's a hydrogeologic evaluation of a proposed monofill site in Palmer, Alaska. It has some very germane information that pertains to our site. It's not specifically written about the Kerbo site, but...
Why would it, if it does not pertain to case 2013-068 or 2013-069, that is what our discussion is about this evening and our work
session. The reason why it pertains is that it's written in response to the applicant's site in Palmer.
That is not relevant to this case.
Okay. I also have a general review of construction and demolition debris regulations throughout the United States per state. It may be beneficial for someone.
You can give it to staff, and they will make sure that the commission has it. Thank you. All right. We have, we'll take a couple of more minutes for testimony. We will take a few minutes to hear from the petitioner, and then this commission has questions about and discussion about the master plan. Okay, so we have very limited time here. We are leaving here at 8:30. All right, you have something, new information that is not an opinion, but that you wish to share with the commission.
Yes, ma'am. I've identified another site that Eklutna has that down the road in the area of Mirror Lake at the interchange, that it is just to the north, I believe northeast of the interchange there. They have the Mirror Lake Edmonds Park that is located on the west side of the highway that's to the north of Mirror Lake Elementary School. There's a large tract of land, Eklutna land, that is just to the north of that. It's high, dry. There's no salmon streams. There's no houses. There's no population anywhere nearby. It's quite a bit farther from the Eklutna River. I've talked with some of the Eklutna people about it. Their feeling is that they want this area just for large lot residential, everything. But this is a very good, viable location for them. Very easily you can get truck traffic from both directions, north and south.
That's not what we're discussing. We're not discussing alternate locations. We are limited to this discussion by what is before us this evening. And that's all we can take testimony on, and that's all we are required or obligated to do under the oath that we take, is to look at what has been presented to us as a monofill conditional use and a master plan. So we cannot take...
I appreciate it. The only reason I say it is because if this has been presented as the only place to do it, and it isn't. So
that is what we have to work with before us.
I understand.
All right. Thank you. All right. All right. I don't see anyone else here from the public who wants to give us any new and additional information. New and additional information is the same requirement from the petitioner at this particular time.
Shane Durand with Central Recycling Services. There's been a lot made of the hydrogen sulfide gas, and I'd like to point out that at Central Recycling, gypsum is one of the products we remove. We make a soil amendment out of it. It's removed from the waste stream as much as possible. We grind it up and it goes to the valley and they plow it into the fields as a soil amendment. In order for it to produce the hydrogen sulfide, it typically has to be between 68 and 100 plus degrees to produce that gas. I think the average temperature up here is less than 68. So when you look at the percentage of sheetrock that would end up in this monofill, it is very, very small compared to what a lot of these reports in places where they've had issues with it. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
I think I'll let Stuart and I will go through some of the questions and try to respond with comments. But there has been, at the last hearing, I know Mr. Spring was one of the parties that talked about the lack of detail and specificity on the master plan. And I don't know if the staff put together copies of the Southport PC district plan or not, so that you could all see that it is simply a bubble diagram with road corridors, trails corridors, open spaces.
Yes.
I'd like to ask, if possible, that you address the monofill, and we get that off, and then we'll come back to the master plan, so you don't get us confused. If that's a great difficulty to you, obtained, I'm sorry, but I'm just trying to keep this thing somewhat organized for our behalf.
Certainly, and I apologize for that, but we've been out here listening to the commissioners struggle with both combining the two or splitting the two and how they relate, and there is a relationship.
All right, so first we're going to talk about the comments about the monofill. We're going to hear some additional and new information from you, something we haven't heard in the past. Then we're going to talk about the master plan.
Okay. Thank you, Madam.
And we may have questions.
Okay. I'll be very brief and try to key on certain just key subjects. One of the items that was brought up just a bit ago related to citation. Yes, we did receive a citation in the Matsu Borough.
I don't really care about your
Okay.
citation as far as the Matsu Borough is concerned. I'm only interested in the monofill, conditional use, and the monofill master plan.
Sounds good. But just to let you know, that was overturned on Thursday. So anyway, in regards to the monofill, some corrections in regards to what Mr. Madden stated as far as percentages go. We have actual facts. The MOA takes in about 300, this is right off their site, 317,000 tons a year in waste. CRS has started in 2010 at almost 30,000 tons. We're up to about 45,000 tons a year right now. That's 14% of the total amount of waste that goes in that's been diverted from there. And even if you look at 7%, he said, in asbestos, that's 21%. And we're only scratching the surface of the amount of C&D waste that goes to the monofill. As he mentioned, or to the MOA landfill, as he mentioned, much of it does not go through our facility. We're really talking more about 30 to 40% of the waste that goes to the landfill is C&D related waste, and we've got the facts. I mean, the numbers don't lie.
Right. And one, I think personally, a very important issue, and I know that Mr. Ferguson and Ms. Dean, dealing in what they work with every day, will understand that there's a difference in the relationship between tonnage and volume. And what Mr. Madden failed to talk about is that differential on the ratio between volume and tonnage. So he can talk all day long about how a little bit of a percentage based on tonnage doesn't mean much to the landfill from a space standpoint and the future. But what you've got to think about is that C&D materials that come in are typically leftover, they're in a big bin, they're leftover scraps from a new construction or a remodel project, or they're a building that's been torn down. It has a very high volume to weight relationship. So you're using up a lot of volume, and that's the issue with the landfill. Volume is what we have there, and that's what we've paid to create. for specific household and other waste for the city. And when we use that volume up, then we can't accept the volume of the other fill material, and we will run out faster than what you are being told from a projection standpoint. And it would be good to ask that question maybe as a follow-up, is what is that differential? How much does the household waste and purchasable waste weigh per volume versus what the C&D does? And I think you'll be quite shocked that it is a big difference, and maybe Stuart even knows.
Well, yeah, the average of a 40-yard bin that comes into our facility of C&D waste, the average weight in that 40-yard bin is only 3.5 tons. It's a very voluminous type of material. It takes, and so typically that would go directly to the landfill, and they would dump that 40-yard bin, and basically they're only showing a 3.5 ton for it, but they're filling a substantial amount of airspace. By the time that same thing runs through our recycling facility, and we're able to pull the waste out or the recyclable materials out, shred it, and get it on down, we can get 40 of those bins into one of our trucks that then goes to the landfill. It's a dramatic change.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Madden talked, as far as that all didn't seem to be that big of an issue as far as the expanding and all that stuff, but this is right out of their operating and capital budgets. The landfill expansion, which they have to construct 5 new cells by 2020, which is, 7 years from now? $38 million. So it's a huge cost to the municipality to expand these cells. And when we talk about the amount of waste that we're saving from going into the landfill, this is right out of their budget, so it's large numbers. The only other thing that I really wanted to go over, and I think this is very important because several of the commissioners have brought this up, is why does it appear that this landfill is tied to the recycling effort? And I've been asked that question several times, and I haven't really had the opportunity to respond to that. Basically, we've developed this full-scale recycling facility based on conversations and discussions and a whole business model working through this with Solid Waste Services. And at that time, they had agreed to taking our daily cover material at the landfill at no cost. And then there's a municipal ordinance 26.80.55, reduced fees for recycling operations. In that ordinance, if you meet the qualifications, you get a 50% reduction in your disposal rate. You pay the full rate, and then they give you back a rebate of 50%. That's a municipal ordinance. However, we started off that way with Solid Waste Services, and once they started to realize that they weren't really making money at this process, they've turned around in their interpretation of that. They've also turned around and not taken daily cover any longer. So from an operational standpoint from us, they've shut down one, which is right out of the ordinance, but we've been unable to get them to change that or to follow the ordinance. So our operational costs have been hammered by Solid Waste Services because they've realized the loss of revenue that they're receiving at the landfill as a result of the increased recycling. So much of what we're seeing here is, rather than being helped by Solid Waste Service to encourage recycling, it's exactly the opposite of that. And why that's important is this, is we're like any business. You have to be able to control your operating costs and know and budget for your operating costs. Recycling is a commodity market where commodities prices change every day. The price of steel, price of copper, price of paper, price of plastic, constantly changing. So we have a component to our business that changes on a regular basis. And being in Alaska, we're at a significant disadvantage. We have no major manufacturing up here that uses the feedstock that comes off of a recycling operation. And it takes 3 to 4 weeks for anything that we ship out to be recycled to get to market. So the price, the commodity price, can and does change dramatically. We've seen a dramatic decrease in the commodity prices, especially for metals. So with us being unable to control the cost of the commodity, we at least need to control the cost of the operation. And we can't do that with the municipality of Anchorage, with their landfill. And in their budget, they also propose they're going to increase the landfill fee again next year. So the whole goal of this monofill is to be able to establish a facility that we can control the costs of the operation and know and plan on that. If we could get that from the municipality, that's probably where we'd be going, but we can't. So it truly is tied integrally that if we're not able to do that, it will effectively shut down the commercial recycling here in the municipality of Anchorage. Those are extremely important points.
All right. Thank you.
Well, in
Is there any other questions? Because we need to move on to the master plan issue.
Let's see, there was one here. Just quickly while I'm looking for that, I will say that Mr. Madden needs to be very careful when he suggests that there's another, and all the other people in the room need to be very careful when they believe there's 200 acres.
All
for
right.
an
We don't need to
expansion.
go there. We didn't.
What I'm trying to tell the commission is that the additional 200 acres that have been suggested by the public and Mr. Madden that are available for future expansion of the municipal landfill.
We have disregarded that comment because it's not appropriate for this commission to speculate on other areas for a potential landfill.
Okay.
So, thank you. We're going to let you sit down. If you have something else that's
Yeah.
germane, we're going to discuss the master plan.
There-
Mr. Parks, Commissioner.
Madam Chair, I'd like to address this basically to staff and talk about the master plans that we've seen previously. Seem to be in much more detail effectively than what we've seen on this particular master plan for the monofill. And I'd like to have, I guess, some feedback on those kind of conditions that we see. And one of the major issues that I have is there seems to be a lot of activity out in this area regarding rezoning areas, and I'd like to see a bigger picture of what's happening out there. If someone from staff could give that to us.
Ms. O'Brien is passing out 3 ordinances to you. These are the 3 original approvals of PC district master plans in the municipality. One is for Southport, one is for the Powder Reserve, and one is for Ship Creek. I would like to emphasize that these were the first ordinances that were approved for each one of these. Each one has gone through multiple revisions, and there's a great deal of supporting documentation running from binders to boxes back in the office that it was not practical to copy, make available. I don't think it would have been useful to you, but I did want you to see since you've asked us about comparisons to other PC districts in the municipality, I did want you to see that these are 3 existing planned community ordinances that were adopted by the municipality. But again, I want to emphasize these 3 ordinances are not regulating what is out there today because they have been amended multiple times. In terms of the big picture, I would direct you to the Chugach Eagle River Comprehensive Plan, which was last updated in 2006. It does include a land use plan map for the community. And the land use plan map has various classifications, and we can provide a copy of this to you in your packet for the next meeting. But there are a variety of residential densities. There's a commercial classification, a town center classification, an industrial classification, and then a couple more specialized transportation, community facility, and park classifications. There's also what's called a development reserve, recognizing that some of the more far-flung areas of the Chugach Eagle River area are not expected to develop in the lifetime of this plan, and plan lifetimes are traditionally 20 years. And so the appropriate use for those more far-flung areas has not really yet been discussed through a planning process by the community. And so they're put in a classification called development reserve. There are a couple special study areas, and the site that's under discussion in these two cases is part of a study area, but I think you asked a little bit more about the big picture. This is our guiding document. This is what we have right now. Eklutna does own a great deal of land in the Chugach-Eagle River area, and I know they participated in this master plan update. I certainly, it would not be appropriate for me to speak to their long-term plans, but from a municipal perspective, you know, we do look to the comprehensive plan as the guiding document as we look at cases that come forward to us.
I guess one of the questions that I have that I'm struggling with a little bit, we have, on our last meeting, we had 4 different issues with property that was happening out in that area. And there seems to be a consistency that we're seeing, and there's not a lot of detail in those, other than they have a particular project they want to get completed, and the rest of it's left kind of undeveloped at that point in time. I can remember some of the other master plans we've seen. UMed District, for example, was very detailed in exactly what we wanted to see and how we wanted to see it from the planning department. I don't see that kind of planning being put in to these particular projects. And I guess that's my question. If I'm comparing it to something that I've had some experience with or looked at, as we've seen in the last even year, this doesn't meet the same kind of criteria that we've seen. And I guess I question, why is that? Is it because there's such a volume of land and UMed is so concentrated and already developed? Is that the reason maybe that we're seeing it done that way?
That's a difficult question for me to answer, since I'm not a petitioner, so I'm not producing the submittal that is coming into the department. Certainly the staff tries to take the information that is submitted and review it against the requirements, and when the staff is of the opinion that not all the requirements have been met through the submittal, we do request additional information. Certainly, you could explain that a certain level of detail is, of course, going to be provided when you have a very developed environment. It's very easy to say, well, we know what's there, and thus we show it on our maps and our plans. When you have a large area that needs to be, that is vacant or mostly vacant, and it is required to be master planned, but the only thing you're sure about is a particular piece of it, there can certainly be some desire for flexibility about other portions of that site. So from the staff's perspective, we do try to make sure that the requirements are met, but in terms of why certain submittals are more specific than others, I think you'd have to ask the people who submit the applications.
Thank you.
So can you come forward, Mr. Potter, and address that question?
Well, I'm going to answer a question by asking a question and let you know that we came prepared to give you more of a global view, which is what we thought we heard at the last meeting, of Eklutna's holdings and what they were thinking about, what planning they were doing or had done, so that you could put all of this into a context. Now, we can either, not by 8:30, but we can either take a larger view and go down, or if you want me to start with the lack of specifics associated with the 68 acres, I can do that as well.
I think the larger view is a view that we would like to see at some point in time, but I think, and I understand that you've prepared a PowerPoint presentation regarding that. I think that's going to be good information. I don't think we're going to be making a decision tonight, or maybe even not in September, on this issue. So I'd like you to address Commissioner Parks's question about why do you not have a more complete master plan?
Okay, I will try, and I'll carry this silly microphone with me. Here is a recolored but exact version of the vacant land suitability map that is in the updated comprehensive plan map and section 4, the Eagle River, Chugiak, Birchwood comp plan. As you can see, the 770, which is encapsulated here, is a pretty significant area. And you can see it's got every color and then some in here. It's a very complex piece of property. It's got bedrock, it's got wetlands, a lot of wetlands, it's got streams, it's got all kinds of wild things going on in there with slopes and everything else. You can tell that by how banded all of these different areas are, so it makes it very complex. So you see a lot of the dark brown in here, and you can see up here in this corner, this is the area that we're talking about, this 68 acres up here. It is effectively a trapped lone piece of property separated by waterways and an undevelopable area. Now, when Eklutna looks at this, they look at something that the city has said, we're not running sewer and water to that location, to the 770. I know the staff suggested that one of the things that would typically be shown in a PC district master plan was where the sewer and water were going, but if they recognize that this area is identified for 1 to 2 dwelling units per acre on a gross basis, and they knew that AWW, which was known at the time, wasn't going to be extending sewer and water to this area, that causes a development issue. So that means that on this area, when you've got highly complex topography, slopes, soils, all kinds of conditions and access issues, if you're going to do on-site septic and wells, there's a ton of work and a lot of money that has to be spent. And until the demand is really there for that kind of development, it doesn't make sense to spend the money now, because things will change before you ever get it developed. And that's part of the problem with a master plan or a conditional use, is that if it's there too long without being developed out, the market will change what has to happen. And that's why you get so many amendments back for master plans and conditional uses. So in this area, one of the other big things is that dead center between the north access and the south Birchwood, or Chugiak access, South Birchwood, is that DOT and the city have been contemplating the potential of an interchange at this location, so that this property would not have to go out to the old Glen and out and clog up these areas to get out to the new Glen. And people could get in and out of the property and back onto the Glen Highway without plugging up and requiring expansions of those pieces of road and interchanges. So if that comes forward, and in the 2006 long-range transportation plan, it was looked at, and I think Mr. Spring knows about this one, is that it was looked at as a possibility as an outboard development at 2016 to 2036. So it's maybe sooner, probably later. And the development pressure just has not been that much. But that is one of the things. If that interchange becomes real, you would definitely do your development differently. If you're going to do residential, one of the things that is noted within this area is that it's 1 to 2 dwelling units per acre, with an acknowledgement that you can go higher than that 1 to 2 dwelling units per acre on a concentrated basis. Because this is where you're probably going to be seeing cluster-type subdivision development that has smaller lots clustered into one area, has a community well and a community, not septic system, but actually a package plant, so that the water can be pumped out and it's drinking water basically and goes into the wetlands or streams. So this requires a ton of work to do, and there's no real viable market to pay for that work at this time. So you've got Eklutna, and I don't want them to be offended when I say this, but they're land rich and cash poor in relative sense, and they have to be very careful about what they spend their money on. So when they get an opportunity and are approached by 2 or 3 different operators that are looking at the need for a C&D monofill site, and they evaluate all the properties, 3 different operators, including some of the more, I'd say, smart guys in town, that when they all come back and say, you know, this area right up here looks like it would be really good. And it's by an old dump, and the parks there that were all gravel pits. And what do you think of that? And we see it that it's a disconnected, triangular piece of property with a ton of highway noise, with dynamics in the topography that make many of the areas too steep for residential development, which it was classified, and it just isn't feasible for residential development. So what do? Can you create a cash flow business that works with the community and works for Eklutna and their shareholders? And yes, you can. So that's why you look at those things. So this is a dynamic piece of property. This is the end piece. This will be left alone for quite some time. And this offers a little bit of development, and you don't have to extend sewer and water to it. In the master plan itself, it's very careful to be very general. Let me get the right drawing. That effectively this is it. So out of this piece of property, you've got about 17 acres that you can put the fill on. There's a wetland and a spring at this location, which is now mapped and done at Eklutna's cost, not the city's cost, to go out and do a delineation and figure out where all these wetlands are and where all these streams are. So you've got a stream here, you can't do anything there. You've got preservation wetlands here, Class A. You've got this corner and you've got this corner. This one is mapped on here as developable or suitable. This area is, for the most part, mapped as very marginally developable or not suitable for development. So there are 2 high spots there. There's a ravine that goes through it. The profile of this has been moved out of any of the wetland area and the spring area that were identified so that it is independent of all that. And low traffic, long-term view, basically on the same basis as how Loretta French Park was developed, which was done by trading gravel for park improvements in the future, which was a benefit to the community in long term. So there's only a couple of uses. One is for the monofill. One is for what we thought would be a smart thing to do, that the area is growing. This is the road district's yard. This area is developable directly next to it. We really don't have access to it long term. We won't have a road to it this way. So it made sense to identify this piece of property as future potential industrial because it will likely go to the Subursa and not be operated as anything that Eklutna does. So we were looking way into the future, looking at what is inevitably going to be growth and trying to respond to that. We were asked by the staff, okay, so you need to identify the developable areas out here for anything in the future after the monofill. And there's only 2 small pads that will be gravel that can support a structure. So we identified those, and within the narrative document and proposed ordinance identified that you could put residential at those 2 locations. I've got a copy of the ordinance that has tracket changes that show, based on our 5 separate meetings with the community and meetings with the staff, that we eliminated about half of the potential uses in this 68 acres going forward. Originally, we looked at having the monofill as a permitted use, and do like one of the gravel operations or rock operations did. They got a master plan approved for their property, and they incorporated rock quarry operations and blasting as a permitted principal use, so it didn't come back to you for a conditional use process. The staff suggested that that would not be appropriate because of the type of development. The community, when we met with them, also indicated that that would not be appropriate. They wanted to look at the details of the specific conditional use. So we've limited the number of uses that can go here, and the reason it's so simple is that there's no sewer and water that's going to come to the area, so we don't show sewer and water. The only road access is a shared access with the park that would provide access to these areas. This would be an expansion of that. If you want us to take this off and not show it as a future development area, because it's difficult to think of Subversa doing that, and you don't want us to develop it because of the traffic that might be generated, fine, take it off. We'll deal with that later. We just thought it was smart long-range planning, because either Subversa is going to have to find another location to expand their facility all in one, or they're going to have another duplicate one about that size somewhere else. That'll be a problem. So in talking to them, everybody thought it was a good idea that in the future that's a possibility. That's why it's so simple. There's not a lot of things to take into account.
Mr. Potter, I have one quick question for you.
Sure.
And when we take a look at this project, it's a lot different when I look at it from the total rather than that total strip coming down that I did in that one section. Because I had no idea what the plan was on the big section. I forgot
Sure.
what number you called it.
Yeah,
the
when
long, thin section between the old and the new sewer.
Right.
That has a different look. Now that you explained that you see that as going to residential, at some point in time, even though it may be low density, would make a difference as you look at that one piece at the top.
Right.
And I think that time would have been well spent if that would have been in the master plan overview, which I didn't see in there. If it was hidden and I didn't get it.
Well, I'd love to do something with the entire Planning and Zoning Commission. It's something that was done down in the Girdwood Valley with the Planning Commission for Alyeska. They had a work session where they basically walked up the valley to where the new hotel site was going to be. Brooke Marston ruined a great pair of wingtips, and God bless him, was calf deep in mud and everything else. And it would be great. And you'd know this property a lot better if you had a chance to walk from there down to there.
I haven't walked it, but I've been in that area. I used to live right across.
Because you would see it all. So.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Potter. I have a question of staff, which you may not be able to answer at this particular point in time, but I would like the answer to it. And back in 1986, when the landfill was permitted, did they get their DEC approval before or after the conditional use? I think that's an important matter because there are a lot of missing pieces still as far as the drainage, the wetlands, and all that sort of thing. And really, quite frankly, I would be a lot more comfortable approving a monofill if the DEC had already given their approval for this monofill. Now, I recognize that there is a certain amount of risk for the petitioner associated with that. But in my opinion, this is a little bit backwards because it seems to me, and if in 1986 that was not the case, and what is the precedence within the United States in other states is, do you get your DEC permit first and then you go for your conditional use, or do you get your conditional use and then go for your permit? And if for some reason they were denied a permit, what happens to the conditional use? Are there time limits that can be placed on it, which I believe that there are, and other limitations? Erica, comments?
None of us know what happened in 1986, but we'll do our best or the municipal staff will do our best to find out and answer your other questions. Certainly, if my understanding from what Ms. Aldrich said earlier is that should they first apply for their DEC permit, get it approved and then be denied their conditional use, they would not be able to effectuate.
Right, I understand that. I understand that. But the reports that they have to do and the requirements that they have to go through to get their DEC permit, then that takes a lot of stuff off the table as far as I'm concerned as a Planning and Zoning Commission member. And then all I have to deal with is it in the best interests of the community? Okay, as opposed to the way we're dealing with it now. And I welcome your comments as long as you don't, you can say, but I will totally disregard, well, we don't want to do it that way because it's too expensive.
No, not at all.
All right.
Not at all. And I appreciate you saying that. No, we've done several. This is our third of these that we've done. In the prior two, the one in Fairbanks and the one out in the Matsu Borough, we did get DEC approval prior to submitting for the CUP. In especially the Matsu Borough one, we got the same pushback from them the opposite direction to some extent, which is why didn't you bring this information to us first before you got your DEC approval? So we're kind of caught either way on this. In this particular one, based on that lesson, we decided to go ahead with going for the CUP because we can't get the ADC permit without the CUP in the end. And you're correct, there's a lot of valuable information that gets turned into DEC that doesn't necessarily end up in your package. But the way we looked at that and what happened out in the Palmer one was that staff then was trying to make scientific determinations about the package, which was DEC's purview. And so we made sure to give it to the agency who's responsible for reviewing it as opposed to staff. And that created a ton of problems in the borough, in the Matsu Borough one. The other issue is that in this particular one, the wetlands determination, we just got it. And so that, a couple of weeks ago. So between that and comments back from staff and the board and the public in this thing, we decided on this one to do the DEC permit after we had that information, because then we've modified the plan to take that stuff into account. If we submit the DEC permit first, and then those things come back, and then the CUP was issued, they won't issue us, the DEC permit has to be changed because of the modifications. So we're kind of caught in a rock and a hard spot. That's the only reason why it's gone this direction.
Well, I can only share with you what as a commissioner with one vote, what my opinion is, which is I would be a lot more comfortable if I knew that you had met all of the requirements for the DEC regarding wetlands, regarding drainage, regarding all the other things, because unlike some of the other commissioners on here, I am not a technical person. So I would rather see this monofill vetted by the DEC before I vote in a positive way or negative way for the conditional use. Because then what I have to decide is it in the best interest of the community? Is it good long-term land use planning? Because another department that is far more superior in all of those technicalities have already vetted it at that level.
And that's a very good point. We are ready to submit this week our package. Now that we have the determination, the wetlands determination, we've made the final changes. The package will be submitted this week.
Commissioner Spring.
Sorry, interrupt.
No.
We're going to be finished here in a few minutes. I had a question to follow up on Mr. Potter's presentation regarding the master plan. I didn't
Okay. All right,
go over
please.
time. Okay. Yeah, Mr. Potter, there a couple questions. I don't think I understand the application, to tell you the truth, the master plan application. Is the area outside the monofill and the industrial area designated as what? What's the plan there?
It is basically open space that can be used for commercial, recreational, or non-commercial recreational activities.
Okay, so no residential.
No, the only residential is identified in those development pods that are within the landfill area. Those will be the tops of the two high spots that will be chopped off.
I guess what confuses me a little bit, how this differs from other applications for planned communities like Southport and Powder Ridge, et cetera, is that you have development areas, and each development area has a section of the ordinance that pertains to it, that delineates what the land uses are and what the development constraints are, like height, et cetera. All I see is a table, I believe, right? That I don't see any development areas identified. And I don't see uses that are listed as permitted under each of those development areas. I think what you're telling me is generally you kind of comply with that, but it may not be in the form that I'm used to seeing it in. So they aren't defined as development areas, though.
This is the ordinance as done to show you what the table of types of uses and you've seen it. And that would be included for residential uses, community uses, and commercial uses and industrial uses. And then identify if they're permitted conditional site plan review or a major site plan review. And then it has the definitions and specific standards are over on the right. So it actually says we're going to be governed by 2105-060A3. And that's where you go to get those standards of heights and how it's developed and what happens. All of the red ones are the ones that have been struck from the uses. So we're down to about 50% of the uses, and many of them are conditional uses, just to make sure.
I appreciate that clarification. I'm still not sure where I find the information regarding the commercial uses in the areas outside the monofill, commercial recreation areas, and et cetera, except for in the narrative.
It's in the narrative, yes.
See, that's why I'm having a problem, I think. It's not in the ordinance, and isn't the ordinance what really we have to look for clarification when it comes to actual enforcement?
Yes, but I believe that it's also incorporated here under the community uses. When you look at parks and open space, you can do community gardens, park and open space, wetland banks. So we were very specific about what you could do within that community use area.
Community use would apply to the entire parcel. This applies to the entire parcel. So you can do all these things anywhere within the entire parcel, because this doesn't delineate development areas. And only the development areas are discussed in the narrative, which isn't part of the ordinance, right?
No, I don't believe that to be the case.
Well, I don't see
I believe that when you read the narrative and tie this together with that and the map, that you'll see that in the development areas, because you can't do residential inside the area identified for industrial, for the expansion of what we see as a subversal lot.
Where is that in the ordinance?
I'd have to look at where it goes on the table as to what you can do within that. But within the code that we've referred to, you can't do a residential use within that. When you look within our entire package, you'll see that within those two small development pods, we talk about how many units can actually go there. So much like Southport, where they had a bubble, and they have total number of acres, average density, and then they say probably a range of total types of units. That's effectively what we've done within our
So, Mr. Potter, I'm going to interrupt you at this particular point in time because it is 8:30, and I do have some work that I want to do with the commissioners. Maybe you could draw a bubble for Mr. Spring and put those categories into the bubble.
I can do that.
Thank you.
I am
And then
capable of
Mr.
doing
Spring
it.
can share it with everyone, and then we'll. So what I want to do here is talk for a minute to each one of the commissioners and see, based upon last Monday night and this Monday night, do you have any remaining questions, and do you have any thoughts that you want to share? Commissioner Ferguson.
That's not fair. You normally start on the other end. I have one remaining question on the master plan for Mr. Potter, a short one. I've got to do some homework on the monofill. I've gotten some information, but I'm not certain I'm ready to make a decision on it.
Okay, what's your brief question with a brief response from Mr. Potter?
Where'd the police substation come from? And do you have any comments on that requirement?
Where did the police substation come from as far as a use?
As a part of the requirements. If I'm not mistaken, staff is asking that you amend the ordinance to require a police substation to be part of a conditional use review.
You deal with it.
I'm going to answer that. I'm Michelle Ritter with WHKM. A lot of the uses that are in the table came directly from the Public Lands and Institution Zoning District. Police substation is a permitted use in the PLI zoning district. And so when we put it in the table, it was put in as a permitted use. I think what staff is asking is that we make it subject to a condition of approval. I'm sorry, conditional use permit. So they're not asking us to necessarily include it, they're just asking us to move how it gets approved in the ordinance.
Well, I had read it differently. After reading that with your explanation, I understand it.
Okay.
But, so right now, there is not a requirement that you're aware of a police substation on this property.
No.
Thank you.
But
And if there is one, it will come back before you as a conditional use permit, so.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Parks.
Well, Mr. Potter, I'd like to thank you for giving me an overview. It helps a lot for me to understand the bigger picture. I would hope that in the near future, or the next time we have an opportunity to see something from Eklutna, that we get a bigger picture first rather than later. For me, it helps, just because it's so big. And when you explained it the way you did, it was very helpful to me.
Mr. Parks, just in response to that quickly, we came tonight ready to do that, and we would like that opportunity in the future.
And we will provide you with that
And
opportunity in the
I think we
future.
need to do that probably before you hear another case. I think it would be helpful for us. So tonight, we were trying to get focused on these two issues, and I hope you understand that. I think we've done a good job staying focused on it. But I think at another time, we need to have a work session just talking about the Eklutna long-term range planning, master planning on that property. I think it's so important to the community. As we have lots of people out looking and wanting to know what's happening, I think it's only fair that we give an idea that they look at it. And I know you guys are so entrenched in it that it's second nature to you, but us, we have to look at every case
So
separately.
is this where I start the state capital move rumor? So.
Yeah, too late.
Right.
The other thing about the landfill, I think that we've got lots of good information. I too, like Mr. Ferguson, am in a position that I've got information overload, and I'm not sure that I could make a decision this evening. But by next week, hopefully, or by the 1st of September, I hope that we have enough information and we can make a decision.
Ms. Dean?
Madam Chair, I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get to the other two cases, since we did ask for 4 tonight. Those petitioners are here. I'm not sure how to resolve that, since they didn't have any chance to speak or interact with us at all. Do we want to have another work session related to these other cases, or how should we proceed?
That's something to think about. I'm not certain. Do you have a recommendation?
It's a lot of information also. And it would be nice if it could be presented to us in a similar manner. And I know they've spent a lot of time putting all this together and figuring out their zoning and what changes they want to make. It would be nice to have an overview and why and how they want to put it all together.
All right.
I don't think the other issue is as complex as this one with the monofill. I think the other issue is not quite, but it's normally what we deal with on a normal meeting night. The monofill, we needed education on the monofill, and that's part of the reason why we needed it tonight, in my opinion.
It is 107 acres, though, so it is a fairly substantial parcel. There is quite a few rezones, quite a few changes, and a lot of different types of zoning. So it is something that is interesting. I don't think we've ever handled one that large of a scale, have we? Recently? Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I can think of one, but not off the top of my head. All right.
Madam Chair, I was also a little disappointed we didn't get into the
Okay.
bigger picture regarding the comprehensive plan update, et cetera. But based on what the petitioner, Mr. Potter, was telling us and Eklutna tells us, is that so far in the future out there, I don't know anybody can really tell us what they're planning to do out the furthest extreme of the municipality of Anchorage. And if they did, it would probably be subject to change anyway. And I also agree with Mr. Ferguson that maybe this isn't as complicated. Maybe it can be dealt with by a supplemental, if that's possible, supplemental two-page report on what your current thinking is for Eklutna in that area, or
Absolutely. In response, Mr. Sprague, and I don't want to make this drawn out, but it's a big issue. It's a big area. Ms. Dean is correct. There are things coming forward. Mr. Parks talked about how there's multiple submittals that are in front of you and coming forward. There are going to be several more on the heels of this that are fairly significant conceptually and in size in the same area that I think are very critical to the community as well as the village of Eklutna. And I think it would be very helpful. We thought you were going to go till midnight tonight, so we came with everybody and all of our photos and drawings to give you the big picture. But I think it would be very healthy. And, you're right. There's some stuff that we can talk about planning and what our thoughts are and not know the specifics. But there's some large pieces of property that have had 4 or 5 master plan efforts done on them between 1985 and today.
Just real quickly, I think I'm primarily interested in the area out in the Eklutna where this petition is. Discussion about the entire subject I know would take forever, and it was interesting to note that you noted that there's several active development projects out in the Eklutna area. So I guess I take back my statement. I would be interested to know what those are and how that might mesh with the current proposal.
I can do a bubble diagram that you'll be able to understand. I can't write and put all of this into 2 pages. I'm good, but I can't do that.
I think,
would like to have a work session on
I think all the commissioners would like to have a work session on Eklutna's near-term plans. I understand and have a great deal of sympathy for master plans and amendments and amendments and amendments, and how master plans have a real economic need to change with market conditions. But this commission has probably seen a third or a quarter of its cases over the past few years have been directly related to Eklutna, and in one way or another. And we do recognize the Chugiak Eagle River area as a significant growth area for the municipality of Anchorage, and I think it would be very beneficial for us at some point to have a rather lengthy, uninterrupted work session, Mr. Potter, where you can spend time giving us a near-term vision and plan for Eklutna. And we will try and put that into our schedule within the next 60 to 90 days.
Does that mean you're not going to take action on any of the other cases until after that? I guess my preference would be to be as helpful to the commission as possible to do an additional work session sometime sooner than that.
We'll try to look at our schedule with staff, and we will get back to you and see when we can do that, taking your comment into consideration.
Thank you.
Mr. Potter, how long do you think it would take you to do that presentation as a work session?
I think that if we had 2 hours, that we could do that, and that will give you a very good idea of not just the areas involved, the history, some of the specifics, history of some of the planning efforts, and what we're really thinking about.
Thank you. I think that's reasonable.
Right. Especially if we had lunch or dinner. Thank you. I think that concludes our work for this evening. Thank you very much. Staff will be back in touch with you. Thank you.